Hello everyone, my name is William Malizia and today I'll be walking you through the safety protocols and procedures for water bath canning. As you'll see, water bath canning is a method of food preservation that involves boiling jars in water to create an airtight seal, preventing the growth of dangerous bacteria and the potential risk of foodborne illness such as botulism. Before we dive into the process itself, let's discuss some of the important safety considerations that everyone should account for whenever they're completing this process. The key to an effective canning job is having a good seal and conducting the right preservation method for your product. It is very important to consider what you're canning and whether or not water bath canning is the appropriate method. Water bath canning is typically reserved for high acid foods with a pH of 4.6 or lower. Good options would be berries, our choice for today, salsa, peaches, jams, and jellies, as well as some tomato recipes. Recipes with added acids such as pickles, salsa, and fermented foods are also appropriate options. Another important consideration is altitude. While water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit at sea level, it boils at lower temperatures at higher altitude. Therefore, when water bath canning at a higher elevation, one must boil the jar for longer. Here in Bozeman at 4,806 feet, we'll be boiling our salsa for 20 minutes, according to our recipe. It is also crucial that one chooses a product that is clean and fresh. Always make sure your food has been cleaned and that it isn't too ripe, as super ripe food typically does not preserve as well. Today, our salsa recipe will include onions, tomatoes, and peppers, as well as a ton of lemon juice for acidity. When beginning the actual process, always put safety first. Clean, clean, clean. This starts with your materials and supplies. For this method, you'll require a large canning pot with a bottom rack. The pot must be deep enough for the cans themselves while still leaving space for 1 inch of water covering the top of the lid and 2 inches of space above to prevent boiling over. You'll also need canning tongs, a wide mouth funnel, and a bubble popper, along with your jars, rings, and lids. All supplies should be properly cleaned with soap and hot water before the process begins. If the boiling process is shorter than 10 minutes, you should sterilize the jars by bringing them to a boil in the canning pot and letting them simmer for 10 minutes before you begin the actual canning process. Regardless, you should warm up the jars by heating them up in the pot at a simmer prior to filling them with product. Now it is time to fill your jars. Always make sure you're strictly following your recipe when filling your jars. Always leave about a ½ inch of headspace above the product. Also, make sure to remove any air bubbles before screwing on your lids. Always wipe your jar rims and lids completely clean before putting them on, ensuring no food residue can prevent a seal. Before placing your jars in the canner, make sure the water is at a simmer. Then, use your canning tongs to pick up the jars and place them in the canning rack and then lower the rack into the water. When moving and placing the jars, make sure they're completely upright, not tilting in either direction. Again, always make sure your jars are submerged 1 inch below the water. Next, cover the canning pot with your lid. Make sure the lid completely seals the top of the pot to ensure proper pressure. Next, bring the water to a boil. Boil the jars for the time stated in the recipe. In this case, we'll be boiling our salsa for 20 minutes. Begin your timer once your water bath has come to a rolling boil. Once your timer has gone off, turn off your burner, remove the lid of the pot, and let your cans rest for 10 minutes. After you've waited, carefully remove your jars from the canner using your canning tongs. Again, make sure they're completely straight, not tipping side to side at all. Set your jars down and let them sit for 12 to 24 hours. Once that time has passed, you can make sure you've created a good seal by removing the rings of the jars and pushing down on the lids. There should be zero give. If there is, refrigerate and eat within 2 weeks. Assuming all went as planned though, you are good to label your jars and store them away.